As our fourth edition of the World Confectionery Conference draws ever closer, we catch up with Oba Dokun Thompson, the regional Nigerian ruler and cocoa expert who discusses key aspects of the market which faces considerable test in 2024 as we return to Belgium in Brussels to celebrate our 90th anniversary of confectionery production.
April. So I'm actually excited about it because that gives an opportunity to talk more about the bridge that we need to create between cocoa and chocolate, between producing and consuming, between poverty and value. And it gives us a better insight into the other side of the cocoa producing challenges, the social issues around it and stuff like that. So I find it to be a more rounded program or, program stroke events that would offer more to even the farmers than just talking about cocoa. Because once you're not talking about the complete cycle, then there will be several gaps or disconnect that you will not really be able to come into a full solution or have an appreciation of the full spectrum of the problems and challenges that's in the industry.
Absolutely. And just casting my mind back to the great presentation you gave for the Academy of Chocolate back in 2018. Now there's 6 years ago there, you were talking about the situation in Nigeria in terms of cocoa growing there. And can you just explain for those who are maybe not familiar with your story about your own passion and belief in trying to revive the industry there?
Okay, you see, what it is Nigeria was the second largest producer of cocoa at some point. And when I became the custodian of the oldest cocoa plantation in the country that has been producing cocoa since 1896, one of the first things that occurred to me was we needed a renaissance of the cocoa industry. And that is about creating the awareness, the reawakening of people's consciousness about the cocoa industry, the value of the cocoa industry, of course. And how do you do that? And how do you want them to embrace it? You look at ways of creating the cocoa culture. What do I mean by that cocoa culture? The appreciation from production, that's of the people producing, the farmers and the rest of them. And then also understanding what cocoa can be used for, the consumption aspect of it in terms of its usage, or even actually creating end products that you can consume. And that's why I was at the Academy of Chocolate. I was talking about sustainability. I was talking about communities dying. The topic was about, now that your trees are dead, what next? And for me, it is a case of, now that our trees are not dead, the communities are almost dying. But if our trees do die, it means a wipeout of the global cocoa industry. It means a wipeout of cocoa processing communities, chocolate manufacturing companies, chocolate stores. That can lead to a global economic crisis. So, and the only way to avoid that is to bridge that gap. And while bridging that gap, it means we will create opportunities to share value. And what value are we sharing here? Number one, while bridging the gap, we would expand the industry, the value of the industry, by an extra 25%, 30%, 40%, and we can share that value. That now gives a level of comfort to the producers. It helps them to begin to transform their minds, to transform their community, and to also create a sustainable producing practice, that all these fears would not be. Part of the problem why we see the drop in production in Ivory Coast and Ghana is because people are running away from the fields, the farms. Meanwhile, in Nigeria and Cameroon, that is not a rigid and highly regulated regime. The farmers are now wanting to run back into the farms, or the younger generation, because of the surge in price.
I've been writing a lot about this EUDR regulation and the connected, it's all the due diligence frameworks that are being put forward through the European Parliament. How useful and how effective do you believe they are going to be in?
Well, I mean, in the short term, it's going to disrupt a lot of things. In the midterm and long term, we hope it has a positive effect. One of the things that they've been able to do was to put everybody now in the same risk band. Before, there were 3 categories of risk bands, and low risk, medium risk, high risk, which I think at the beginning of a new policy or compliance, should I call it barriers, right? Everybody, especially something as new as that, a lot of education is needed, a lot of awareness needs to be created, and some groups or people also need to fund that aspect of it. So, and that's the disruption I can see in the short term.
Industry, but from your own point of view, what keeps you passionate about the cocoa sector from your side of things?
Well, actually, I would not, one of the things I've been trying to explain is, when we talk about social responsibility, right? I have tried to turn the word responsibility around into investments. So for me, as a custodian, I mean, my great-grandfather started producing cocoa in Nigeria as far back as 1896. And I am the custodian of that stool today as a traditional ruler of Eti-Oni. And the only way that will make sense to me, or make sense to my role as that, is to be able to invest in the future. So what I am doing is actually working to invest in the future of the community, of the people, invest in the future of also cocoa producing regions, I mean, across the world. And so it's a lifetime thing for me.
As we were talking about initially there, you've been extremely busy personally, involved in actually delivering your own confectionery, the chocolate range there. So can you tell us about how that's come about and what the reaction has been so far?
The reaction has been very encouraging back in Nigeria, even in London, and even across the world, because we have people calling us from Canada, from the US, from parts of Europe, even as far back as, as far as South Korea and places like that, wanting to engage us about distribution, about expansion opportunities and stuff like that. And what's the reason for this? One of the things I said to someone recently was that, yes, we don't have a cocoa industry. And the reason why I said we don't have a cocoa industry is we need to look at things as a complete circle or cycle. We are at the very bottom, or just a little arc of that cycle, part of it. So to be able to create that sort of industry, we must be able to create the full cycle, whichever way, either through collaboration, partnerships, or efforts. And that's what the Grade J4 chocolate is trying to convey, the message we're trying to convey, that we can do this. people can do this through collaboration, through partnerships. So it's not just about us, okay? But it's about putting nations together. It's about putting regions or communities together to share value and also be able to tell stories that this is what we're trying to do. I mean, when we're looking at, we look at trade in different ways. We look at innovation or creativity in different ways. But one of the most important aspects of creativity, of innovation, or even collaboration and partnerships or trade is to be able to better people's lives, to be able to create a development or transformation around people's lives, people's existence. And that's the message the Gureje 4 chocolate is trying to pass across to the world, that it is possible. Even, you know, and no matter how small you start, you can start. And the beauty of it is, this is our cocoa. We don't need to say it's slave-free. We don't need to say it's fair, there's fair price. The bottom line is, when we're saying it's our cocoa, it's the community is like a family. Whatever we get from it, we use it to transform our communities for everybody. Not that